The first rule of living in Harmony Creek is that harmony is a mandatory state, enforced by one Brenda, our HOA president, and her clipboard of judgment. My Saturday morning, a rare perfect slice of suburban peace, was shattered by the sight of her. I was on my front porch, nursing my first cup of coffee. The good stuff, the beans I have to grind myself, and trying to decide if I had the moral fortitude to mow the lawn. That's when I saw her. She was in full uniform, a blindingly white visor, a pastel pink polo shirt tucked tightly into beige walking shorts, and the clipboard. Always the clipboard. She wasn't just walking her dog, a yapping white poodle named Chairman. I'm not kidding. She was patrolling. I watched her stop at Bill and Melinda's driveway, 2 doors down. She squinted, pulled a tape measure from a holster on her shorts, and knelt. I knew exactly what she was doing. She was measuring the oil stain from Bill's 1978 Mustang. "Too dark," I muttered into my mug. "That's a non-compliant petrochemical residue violation. That's a $50 fine, Bill." My internal monologue is a constant running commentary of HOA violations. It's a defense mechanism. Living here is like living in a homeowners association themed escape room, and Brenda is the game master who really enjoys her job. I've seen her cite a family for excessive, unthemed holiday cheer because they mixed inflatable snowmen with a classic nativity scene. I've seen her measure the precise height of a neighbor's sunflowers. "Anything over 6 feet," she had declared at the last meeting, constitutes a spite fence and blocks the neighborhood's light and air easement. I ducked my head, hoping the decorative shrubbery by my porch would provide camouflage. No such luck. Her head snapped in my direction, her visor glinting in the morning sun like the scope of a sniper. She'd seen me. A tight, reptilian smile spread across her face. It didn't touch her eyes. Her eyes were calculating the distance to my front door. She changed course, the little poodle Chairman getting yanked along by his leash, his tiny legs struggling to keep up. This was it. The walk of shame. Only it was her walk, and my shame. I debated my options. I could bolt inside and pretend I didn't see her, but she'd just tape the notice to the door. I could wave, but that felt like inviting the vampire in. I settled on what I always do, the neighborly hostage pose. I stayed put, sipping my coffee, feigning a relaxed attitude that I absolutely did not feel. "Morning, Greg," she chirped. Her voice was like high-pitched gravel. "Brenda," I nodded, a man greeting his executioner. She didn't stop for pleasantries. She didn't ask about my weekend, or my job, or the world in general. She marched right up my driveway, her rubber-soled shoes making an aggressive squeak, squeak, squeak on the concrete. She stopped at the bottom of my porch steps, just outside of conversational friend. Range, but well within official business range. From a pocket on her clipboard, she produced a single beige envelope. The official color of "I am about to ruin your month." It's never, "Hey, we're having a potluck." It's never, "Welcome to the neighborhood, here's a fruit basket." It's always, "Your existence is in violation of Article 4, Section 8. She didn't hand it to me. That would imply a level of human interaction. Instead, she stepped up, tucked the envelope into the handle of my screen door, and tapped it twice with a long, bony finger. Tap, tap. A summons. Then with that same terrifying smile, she turned, squeaked back down the driveway, and continued her patrol. Chairman, sniffing my mailbox for any signs of non-compliance. I sat there for a full minute. The coffee had turned bitter in my mouth. Maybe it's a mistake, I thought, knowing full well Brenda doesn't make mistakes. She makes corrections. I sighed, heaving myself out of my comfortable chair. I plucked the beige envelope from the door handle. It was, as always, sealed. She probably used a hygienic letter sealing sponge. I ripped it open, not caring about the paper cut. Harmony. Creek Homeowners Association official notice of violation. Violation. Article 4, Section 8. Failure to maintain exterior cleanliness and aesthetic upkeep. Member Greg M., Lot 34. Date October 27, 2025. Specifics. A visual inspection on the above date has revealed that the rain gutters on the north and east-facing aspects of the dwelling are visibly clogged with leaves, pine needles, and other unsightly natural debris. I stopped reading. Unsightly natural debris. It was poetry. It was the most Brenda-esque phrase I'd ever encountered. Remedy. The member must remedy the situation by ensuring all gutters are fully and completely cleaned of all contents. Compliance deadline: 14 days from the date of this notice. Penalty: failure to comply will result in an initial fine of $50,000, doubling weekly until the violation is cured. I looked up. I mean, she wasn't wrong. My house is a 2-story colonial, and the ancient oak tree in my front yard, which I loved for its shade, had just finished its annual autumnal explosion. The gutters were, indeed, overflowing. A few small branches were sticking out, and a vibrant community of moss was taking root. It looked less like a gutter and more like a long, thin terrarium. But it was autumn. Everyone's gutters were full. It was a fact of nature. You clean them after the leaves are done falling, not in the middle of the leaf-pocalypse. But the main reason I hadn't touched them was the ladder incident of 2023. I have a rickety, ancient aluminum extension ladder. Last fall, I'd been up on the 2nd-story roofline, one hand on the gutter, the other scooping out handfuls of slimy, decomposing leaf muck, when a squirrel, a big, fat, and aggressive one, had decided to use the ladder as his personal highway. He ran up my leg, paused on my shoulder to chatter at me, and then leaped onto the roof. I, in response, performed a move that was 1 part panic, 1 part interpretive dance. The ladder wobbled. I grabbed the gutter. The gutter, not designed to hold a 190-pound man, made a horrible screech noise as it bent. I swung back, the ladder tipped, and I ended up dangling from the gutter by both hands, my feet kicking at the air 20 feet up. My neighbor, Chuck, had been watering his plants and just stared. You need a hand there, Greg?" he'd asked, not moving. I'd had to shimmy, hand over hand, back toward the dormer window, where I managed to kick my way through the bug screen and tumble into my own attic, covered in sweat, gutter slime, and shame. The ladder was still lying where it fell, behind the garage. I hadn't touched it since. I was officially ladder-phobic. So Brenda's letter wasn't just an annoyance. It was a demand for me to face my trauma. 14 days, I grumbled, crumpling the letter. I looked at the offending gutter. The moss was rather green. A small, cheerful-looking weed had even sprouted near the downspout. I had a choice. I could pay some guy $400 to come out and scoop the muck, or I could pay the fine. I did the math. 50 deets, then $100, then $200, then $400. By week 4, I'd be paying $800 a month for the privilege of not climbing a ladder. Brenda had me. Or so she thought. "Unsightliness is in the eye of the beholder, Brenda," I said to the empty porch. "And debris is such a subjective word." I went inside, the crumpled beige letter clutched in my fist. I wasn't going to clean the gutters. I was going to... Well, I didn't know what I was going to do. But I was definitely not climbing that ladder, and I was not going to give her the satisfaction. The first few days were a blur of what I call productive procrastination. I spent hours on my computer, not working on the branding project for a mid-level dental adhesive company, my actual job, but instead deep diving into the world of gutter maintenance. I Googled gutter cleaning services near me. The first result, Gutter Guts Inc., had a logo of a muscle-bound man ripping a tree out of a gutter. Their slogan was, "We clear the crap," I called. "Gutter Guts," a gruff voice answered, sounding like he gargled with roofing nails. "Hi," I said, trying to sound normal. "I need a quote for a gutter cleaning. 2-story colonial." "2-story? Got trees?" "Oh yeah, one big one. Oak. Lots of, unsightly natural debris." "Debris," he scoffed. "You mean leaves, son. That's a premium job. 2-story with heavy oak debris, you're looking at, let me see, $500. Minimum. $650 if the downspouts are packed." I almost choked on my own tongue. $650 to scoop leaves? "You're paying for the height, the insurance, and the disposal, pal. You want it done or not? I got a cancellation. I can be there Thursday. I'll call you back," I stammered, and hung up. This was insane. I wasn't paying half a month's car payment to have a guy named Guts scoop my leaves. My next phase was technical solutions. I spent an entire afternoon watching YouTube videos of gutter cleaning robots. They looked like tiny, sad tanks that spun little brushes and inevitably got stuck on a twig, requiring you to get the ladder anyway to rescue the $200 robot. Then there were the shop vac attachments, long, curved plastic tubes that looked like a bad attempt at a Dr. Seuss invention. The reviews all featured men falling off ladders while trying to wield the unwieldy plastic anaconda. Defeated, I slumped back to my desk. The red-circled 14 days on my calendar mocked me. I had 10 days left. I stared at the crumpled beige letter. Article 4, Section 8. This is what drove me to it. The great, unholy tome, the Harmony Creek HOA bylaws. It was a 3-inch thick white binder that they gave you at closing, a 300-page monument to joylessness. I hauled it off the shelf, blowing a cloud of dust off the top. I hadn't opened it since I moved in. I was looking for the appeals process, a request for variance form, anything. I flipped through pages of rules. Mailbox colors, see Appendix A, approved beiges. Lawn ornamentation, holiday-specific, limited to 14-day window. Refuse receptacle placement, not visible from street, 6 p.m. deadline. I finally found Article 4, Exterior Maintenance. And there it was, Section 8. Failure to maintain, gutters, free of unsightly natural debris. I read the line. Then I read it again. It didn't say the gutters had to be empty. It said they had to be free of unsightly debris. A slow, dangerous, and profoundly stupid idea began to form in my brain. What if the debris wasn't unsightly? What if it wasn't debris at all? I kept flipping. My heart was starting to beat a little faster. I found Article 7, Landscaping and Grounds. Section 2. Residents are encouraged to install and maintain ornamental plantings, flower beds, and shrubbery to enhance community aesthetics and property values. I looked at the window, up toward my gutter. It was already full of, well, compost. Rich, organic, leaf-based compost. It was prime planting real estate. "Greg," I said to myself, "that is the dumbest idea you've ever had." I grabbed my phone. This is not a clogged gutter, I practiced, pacing my office. This is a high-altitude linear planter. It's not debris, it's curb appeal. It sounded insane, which meant it was the perfect plan. I wasn't going to clean the gutters, I was going to plant them. I went back to Google. This time, I didn't search for gutter cleaning. I searched for landscapers who will ask no questions. This led me to the services section of Craigslist, a place I usually only visit when I need to get rid of a broken washing machine. I skipped the ads with glossy photos and BBB A+ rating. Was looking for something grittier. I found it. Sal's Spontaneous Landscapes. We dig it. You name it, we plant it. Or haul it. Or whatever. The ad had one blurry photo of a tie-dye painted pickup truck overflowing with ferns. The phone number was a local cell. This was my guy. I dialed. It rang 3 times. Then, "Hello, this is Sal." He sounded about 22 and way too energetic. "Hi, Sal?" I said, feeling ridiculous. "I'm calling about your landscaping ad. I have, project. It's a little unconventional." "Bro, unconventional is my middle name," Sal said. "Last week, I built a koi pond in a guy's living room. Don't ask. What's the gig? You need a tree removed? You need a tree installed?" "Sort of," I said. "I need you to install some plants in my gutters." A long, profound silence filled the line. I was sure he'd hung up. "Sal, you there?" "Bro," he finally said, his voice full of a strange, new reverence. Are you trying to stick it to your HOA?" "Is it that obvious?" "A gutter garden," Sal whispered. "Like a linear garden. On your roof. To hide the leaf gunk. That is poetic, man. That's like Zen anarchy. I am so in." "You are?" I was stunned. "You don't think it's, I don't know, going to rot my house?" "Nah, man, nah," Sal said, suddenly all business. "Your gutters are already holding all that wet, heavy leaf sludge, right? They're already handling the weight. We just gotta stabilize the substrate. We'll drill some more drainage holes so it doesn't get swampy, reinforce the hangers with some heavy-duty brackets so they're solid, and then we plant. What's your sun situation? Full sun? Partial shade?" The front is full sun. The side is partial shade." "Perfect," he yelled. "We'll go with a shallow root system. Drought tolerant. We don't want anything high maintenance. I'm thinking sedums. You know, hen and chicks. They're succulents. They love neglect. We'll get a bunch of different colors. Reds, greens, blues. And for the shady side, maybe some ornamental grass, something that drapes. For the drama, oh, this is gonna be sick." How much?" I asked, afraid of the answer. "For a gig this righteous? Man, I'll do it for parts and labor. Let's say 600? That includes brackets, soil, and all the plants you can handle." It was less than the gutter cleaning guy. "Sal," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You're hired. When can you start?" "I gotta source the plants. How about Monday, 9 a.m. I'll bring the crew." "The crew?" "Yeah, Sketch and Peanut. They're good. Mostly." "Okay. Monday. One last thing, Sal. This is weird." "Bro, we're past weird. Hit me." Can you also pick up some plastic flamingos? Like, tiny ones?" There was another pause. "You're a genius," Sal said. "You're an artist. I'll see you Monday, Greg. We're gonna make history." I hung up the phone and looked at the white binder. I was no longer a victim. I was a patron of the horticultural arts. The next few days were spent in a state of giddy terror. I was actually going to do this. I was going to turn my primary water diversion system into a floral display to win a passive-aggressive war with a woman named Brenda. I went to my office and wrote a check to Sal, leaving it under the doormat. I felt like I was paying off an assassin. On Monday morning, I was on my second cup of coffee, and my hands were visibly shaking. At 8:59 a.m., I heard it. A deep, throaty rumble, followed by the unmistakable sound of a bass line from a mid-90s ska band. I peeked through the blinds. A massive, ancient pickup truck, painted in what appeared to be leftover house paint, mostly turquoise and yellow in a tie-dye pattern, idled at my curb. The tailgate was spray-painted "The Green Bastard." Sal hopped out of the driver's side. He was exactly as I pictured. Tall, skinny, with a cloud of wild hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing cargo shorts and dirty sandals. His two-man crew tumbled out of the passenger side, two guys even skinnier than him, both wearing beanies despite the 70-degree weather. They were Sketch and Peanut. They immediately started unloading ladders, professional ladders, not my aluminum death trap, and dozens of plastic trays of colorful, spiky-looking plants. My doorbell rang. I opened it. Sal stood there, beaming. He was holding a small pink plastic flamingo in one hand and a coffee mug that said, "Plant dads are the best dads," in the other. "Greg, my man," he said, holding up the flamingo. "I found him. We're cleared for takeoff." "Sal," I said, my voice a nervous croak. "Welcome. The check is under the mat." "Righteous. Okay, crew. Let's get this sky garden built." Sketch and Peanut grabbed the ladders and started hauling up bags of high-end potting soil, trays of succulents, and a toolbox that looked like it had fallen off a cliff. They weren't subtle. They were laughing, dropping tools on the concrete, and the ska music was still pumping from the truck's open windows. I retreated inside, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was it. There was no turning back. Project Green Gutter was officially underway. I hid in my own kitchen, making a pot of coffee I didn't need, peeking through the slats of the blinds like a man under witness protection. Sal and his team were surprisingly efficient. Sketch was on the roof, walking along the edge with the confidence of a mountain goat, using a cordless drill to reinforce the gutter hangers every few feet with heavy-duty brackets. Peanut was hauling bags of soil up the ladder, and Sal was directing the whole operation from the lawn, using wild hand gestures, like a conductor for a very strange, very dirty orchestra. "No, no, Peanut. The Echeverias go on the south-facing side. They need the sun, man. The Sedums can handle the partial. Think like the water." They weren't cleaning the gutters so much as amending them. They scooped out just enough of the compacted leaf muck to make room, then mixed it with the new, lightweight potting soil. They were, as Sal had put it, stabilizing the substrate. The whole operation was loud. The drill, the ska music, Sal yelling, Sketch and Peanut yelling back. It was the absolute opposite of blending in. My neighbor Chuck came out, got his mail, and just stared. He looked at the truck, at the men on the roof, at the trays of plants, and then at my front door. He gave a slow, confused nod, then went back inside. I knew she was coming before I saw her. I felt a disturbance in the force, a cold chill of pure, unadulterated beige. I looked through the blinds. There she was, power walking. Her visor was pulled low, her face set in a mask of glorious indignation. She must have heard the music. She'd probably received 3 anonymous tips from other neighbors already. She stopped at the end of my driveway, hands on her hips. She stared at the truck. She stared at the men on the roof. She stared at the bags of Miracle Grow littering my lawn. Greg! Her voice cut through the ska music like a circular saw. The music stopped. Sal, Sketch, and Peanut all froze. I sighed. Showtime. I opened my front door, stepping out onto the porch with my coffee mug, trying to project an aura of, "What seems to be the problem, officer?" "Morning, Brenda," I said, taking a sip. "Beautiful day for it, huh?" "What is the meaning of this?" she hissed, walking onto my lawn. She was pointing a quivering finger at the roof. "You were issued a notice. You are putting more things in your gutters. You're putting dirt in them." "Ah," I said, smiling. "Glad you noticed. I'm just complying with the notice." "Remedying the situation," I believe was the phrase. "This is not remedying," she shrieked. Chairman the poodle, tucked under her arm, started yapping in agreement. This is, I don't even know what this is." Sal, sensing his cue, descended the ladder. He was covered in soil, a stray piece of ornamental grass stuck in his hair. He looked like a friendly garden gnome who'd just lost a fight with a lawnmower. "Morning, ma'am," Sal said, wiping his dirty hands on his cargo shorts. "Just helping Greg here with his high-altitude linear xeriscape. It's a very eco-friendly solution." Brenda's eyes narrowed to tiny, suspicious slits. A what?" "A xeriscape. You know," Sal said, gesturing expansively. "Drought-tolerant plantings. We're maximizing his green space, reducing his carbon footprint, and creating a biodiverse micro-ecosystem. Very in right now. Very sustainable." You are clogging his gutters. You're creating a mosquito-infested swamp. You're going to rot his fascia board. Get down from there," she yelled at Sketch, who was busy arranging succulents. Sal chuckled, a bless-your-heart kind of sound. "Oh no, ma'am, you've got it all wrong. See, these are succulents. Sedums, echeverias. They hate standing. Water. We've actually drilled extra drainage holes. This setup will drain better than that old compacted clump of leaves you've got on your roof." Sal pointed. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. From our vantage point, you could clearly see Brenda's own gutter, right above her front door, sprouting a healthy-looking maple sapling. Brenda's head snapped around. She looked at her house. She looked back at Sal. Her face went from pale pink to non-compliant crimson. She was speechless. She had been outmaneuvered by a man named Sal. She sputtered, This is, you will be hearing from the board, Greg, and from our lawyers. This is not over. This is a structural modification." "It's just plants, Brenda," I called after her, as she power-walked away, Chairman yapping furiously. "Article 7, ornamental plantings. We're enhancing community aesthetics." She didn't look back. Sal turned to me and gave me a low five. "That, my friend, is what we call disrupting the paradigm. Now, where do you want the flamingos?" By noon, it was done. And it was glorious. It was the most ridiculous, beautiful, and utterly defiant thing I had ever seen. My entire two-story roofline was framed in a vibrant, living ribbon of color. Bright green, deep red, and bluish-purple succulents were nestled into the soil. Delicate ornamental grass really did drape over the edge, creating, as Sal had promised, drama. And every 5 feet, like a tiny pink sentinel, Sal had wedged a 6-inch-tall plastic flamingo. It was a masterpiece of malicious compliance. Sal, Sketch, and Peanut packed up their tools, the ska music fired back up, and with a friendly wave, the green bastard rumbled off down the street. I stood on my lawn for a long time, just admiring their work. The gutters were no longer clogged with debris. They were unequivocally a horticultural display. The afternoon was a parade of neighborhood reactions. People walking their dogs would stop, look up, and do a double take. Cars slowed down, the drivers pointing. My neighbor Chuck came back over, this time with a beer in his hand. He just stared up at the roof, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Greg," he said, not looking away. "That is art. That's what that is. My wife, Karen, not that kind of Karen, my Karen, she loves it. She says it's whimsical. I say it's brave." "Thanks, Chuck," I said, feeling a surge of pride. "Brenda's going to have an aneurysm, you know," he said, taking a sip. "She's already been power walking up and down the street on her phone, probably talking to the HOA lawyers. She's saying you've created a vermin-attracting water feature." "It's xeriscaping," I said, using Sal's word. It felt good. Right. Xeriscaping." Chuck nodded, pointing. "The tiny flamingos are a nice touch. Really ties the roof together." Not all reviews were so positive. Marge, Brenda's ally from 3 doors down, deliberately walked her dog on the other side of the street, holding her nose in the air as if my house suddenly smelled. A few other residents, the ones who ironed their lawn-mowing shorts, just shook their heads in silent, beige-colored disgust. I didn't care. I went inside, sat at my desk, and for the first time in a week, I actually got some work done. I was designing a logo for the dental adhesive, but in my head, I was a maverick, a rebel, a gutter gardener. Brenda had fired the first shot with her beige envelope. I had just returned fire with a salvo of succulents and pink plastic. The war for Harmony Creek had begun. For 3 glorious days, there was peace. A tense, silent, everyone is staring at your house kind of peace. The gutter garden thrived. We had a light rain, and the plants seemed to love it. The succulents plumped up, their colors looking even more vibrant against the gray of the roof. The ornamental grass swayed poetically in the breeze. I'd sit on my porch with my coffee, waving at the slow-moving cars. I was a local celebrity, or a local lunatic. The line was thin. I knew it wouldn't last. Brenda wasn't the give-up-and-move-on type. She was the double-down and call-in reinforcements type. On the 4th day, I came home from a grocery run to find it. It wasn't a beige envelope. Oh no, we were way past beige. This was a bright, angry, crimson-red envelope. And it wasn't tucked into my door handle. It was taped to the center of my front door, with so much packing tape it looked like a quarantine notice. I had to peel it off, the tape taking a few flecks of paint with it. "Intimidation," I muttered. "Nice move, Brenda." I opened it. The font was bigger. It was bolded. And it was in all caps. Harmony Creek Homeowners Association Final. Cease and desist order. Member Greg M. Lot 34. Violation, illegal modification of roof line. Article 9, Section 2. Unapproved landscaping. Article 7, Section 4. Creation of a public nuisance. Article 11, Section 1. Flagrant disregard for community aesthetics and creation of a vermin-attracting water hazard. Article 11, Section 3. They were just making stuff up now. Flagrant disregard for community aesthetics sounded personal. Penalty. The original fine of $50 for unsightly debris is now $200, doubled twice as I was late. In addition, a new separate fine of $500 is hereby levied for the unapproved structural modification. Total due, $700. Remedy: you are ordered to cease and desist all horticultural activity. You must immediately remove the illegal rooftop farm, all associated materials, soil, plants, root systems, and flamingos, and restore the gutters to their original, empty, and barren state. You must then schedule an inspection with the board to certify compliance. Compliance deadline: 48 hours. Failure to comply will result in our legal counsel taking all necessary actions, including but not limited to placing a lien on your property. My hands were shaking. A lien. They were threatening to put a lien on my house over some hen and chicks. I read the letter again. I was angry. This wasn't about rules anymore. This was about power. Brenda had a paper army, and she was sending it in. I took the crimson letter, walked into my office, and sat down. I was in it now. I was in it to win it. I pulled out the 3-inch binder again. I looked up Article 9, Section 2. Illegal modification of roofline. It referred to skylights, dormers, and other permanent structural additions. I hadn't added a structure. I'd added succulents. I looked up Article 7, Section 4, unapproved landscaping. This was a trick. Section 4 was about trees over 20 feet. Section 2, the one I was using, was about ornamental plantings. She was quoting the wrong rule. I grabbed my phone, went outside, and took a picture, a beautiful sun-drenched photo of my vibrant gutter garden. The tiny flamingos really popped. Then I composed an email. To H. Creek Board at harmony.com. From Greg M. Olot34gmail.com. Subject: Compliance with Article 4, Section 8. Dear Board Members, thank you for your passionate follow-up letter regarding my gutter maintenance. As you can see from the attached photo, I have fully complied with the original violation notice. The gutters are no longer clogged with unsightly natural debris. They are, in fact, a maintained horticultural display. I believe there has been a misunderstanding regarding your new citations. Article 9, Roofline. My planting is not a structural addition. No shingles were removed, no wood was cut. The plants are in the gutter, which is pre-existing. Article 7, Landscaping. You cited Section 4, Trees, which is incorrect. I am operating under Article 7, Section 2, which, as you know, encourages ornamental plantings to enhance community aesthetics. I believe my display is a vast aesthetic enhancement over the previous leaf, sludge, and sapling motif. Vermin-attracting water hazard. The plants are succulents. They require less water than a traditional flower bed and are absorbing the stagnant water that previously collected in the clogged gutters. Per my landscaper, a xeriscape specialist, this prevents mosquitoes. All fines are therefore respectfully disputed. I consider this matter cured. Have a wonderful day. Best, Greg M. Lot 34. I hit send. The feeling was electric. I had just digitally drop-kicked. Brenda. I was pouring myself a celebratory beer when I saw the flashing lights. Blue and red. They were sweeping across my living room wall. My heart didn't just drop. It plummeted. Oh, crap, I said, beer forgotten. I went to the front door and looked out. A Harmony Creek Police Department cruiser was parked at my curb. 2 officers were getting out. And there, on the sidewalk, practically vibrating with a "see, I told you" energy, was Brenda. She was pointing at my roof. I stepped outside, trying to look casual, like I Wasn't in the middle of a war over shrubbery. The two officers walked up my driveway. One was older, with a "I am so tired of this neighborhood" mustache, and a nameplate that read Miller. The other was young, fresh-faced, and looked like he was desperately trying not to laugh at the situation. His nameplate said Kent. "Afternoon, sir," Officer Miller said, stopping at the bottom of my porch steps. His hand was resting on his belt, but not in a threatening way, in an "I am too old for this" way. "Officers," I said, nodding. "Everything okay?" We got a call," Miller said, sighing. He looked at his notepad. "We got a call about a structurally compromised roof?" He looked up at my house, then back at me. "And something about aggressive gardening?" Brenda, from the sidewalk, couldn't contain herself. "He's going to collapse his own house, officer," she yelled. "It's a water hazard. It's attracting vermin. I heard scratching. It's probably roof rats." "Ma'am, please stay on the sidewalk," Officer Miller said, not taking his eyes off me. "Sir, your neighbor here seems to think your house is in imminent danger of falling down because of the, he gestured up. Officer Kent, the rookie, was looking up at the roof, his eyes wide. I saw his shoulders shake for a second. "Sir," Kent said, trying to sound official, are those tiny pink flamingos?" "They're ornamental, officer," I said, deadpan. "For curb appeal." "Right," Miller said, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Look, sir, we're not structural engineers, but your house, it doesn't look like it's falling down. Is it on fire? Is it making loud noises?" "No, officer. It's just plants. It's a few bags of lightweight potting soil and some succulents. My roof held 3 feet of snow last winter. I think it can handle some hen and chicks." "He's violating the bylaws," Brenda shrieked. "He's been cited! He's creating a nuisance!" Officer Miller turned his head slowly, painfully, toward Brenda. "Ma'am, I have explained this to you before. The Harmony Creek HOA bylaws are not criminal code. We do not enforce community aesthetics." "But it's tacky," she wailed, the final desperate plea of a tyrant who has lost control. "Ma'am," Miller said, his patience audibly snapping, "tacky is not a 911 emergency. Aggressive gardening is not a 911 emergency. Unless a flamingo actually flies off that roof and attacks someone, this is a civil matter. Please, stop calling us." He turned back to me. "Sir, have a good day. Your garden looks nice." "Thank you, officer," I said, trying not to grin. Miller and Kent turned and walked back to their cruiser. As Kent got in the passenger side, he looked back at me, caught my eye, and gave me a very subtle, very quick thumbs up. I felt like I'd just won the Super Bowl. The cruiser pulled away. Brenda was left on the sidewalk, her mouth open, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. She had escalated to the highest possible authority, the police, and they had told her tacky wasn't a crime. She stared at me. I stared back. I slowly and deliberately raised my hand, gave her a friendly little Boy Scout wave, and went back inside. She had one card left to play: the emergency board meeting. And I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that the summons was already being printed. The summons arrived the next day. It wasn't red. It was a stark, funereal white in a thick cardstock envelope. It was hand-delivered to my mailbox by Brenda herself, who I watched from my office window. She placed it in the box with the grim finality of an undertaker. Mandatory emergency hearing. Subject, grievance and compliance hearings. Lot 34. Greg M. Location, Harmony Creek Clubhouse, Meeting Room B. Date, Thursday, October 30th, 7 o'clock p.m. Sharp. Attendance is not optional, it concluded. The board will vote on penalties, including legal action and property liens, as deemed necessary. This was it. The final showdown. The OK Corral, but with beige carpet and stale coffee. For the next 2 days, I studied. I didn't just read the 300-page binder, I memorized it. I cross-referenced. I put sticky notes on key pages. I highlighted Article 7, Section 2, Ornamental Plantings. I highlighted Article 4, Section 8, Unsightly Debris. I found the definition of structural modification in the glossary. It did not include potting soil. I also made one phone call. Thursday night, I put on my best I am a reasonable adult outfit, a collared shirt, clean jeans, and shoes that weren't sneakers. I grabbed my binder and walked to the clubhouse. Meeting Room B was, as expected, a joyless beige box with fluorescent lighting that made everyone look like they had the flu. The air smelled like burnt coffee and industrial carpet cleaner, and it was packed. Brenda had clearly whipped the neighborhood into a frenzy. This was the biggest scandal in Harmony Creek history. The room was divided. On one side, I saw Marge and the other true believers sitting in the front rows, arms crossed, whispering to each other. On the other side, I saw my neighbor, Chuck, who gave me a solemn, "We are with you in spirit," nod. He and his wife, Karen, had taken seats in the back. At the front of the room, behind a long folding table, sat the board. There was Brenda, in the center, in her president chair. She wasn't wearing her visor, but she had on a severe-looking blazer. To her right sat Bob, the treasurer. Bob was a pale, nervous man who always looked like he'd just been accused of something. He was Brenda's yes man. To her left sat Sarah, the secretary, a younger woman who looked like she'd rather be literally anywhere else. "This emergency meeting of the Harmony Creek HOA is now in session," Brenda announced, banging a small gavel. "We are here to discuss the flagrant and ongoing violations at Lot 34. All eyes turned to me. I felt like I was on trial for murder. "Brenda, if I may," I said, standing up. "It's Greg, not Lot 34. "The violation is at Lot 34, she snapped. "Mr. Gregg, you have been cited multiple times for non-compliance. You have ignored notices. You have ignored a cease and desist order. And you have mocked this board's authority by—" She gestured, at a loss for words. "By decorating your violation." Bob, the treasurer, piped up. "The fines currently total $700, Mr. Gregg, and they are accruing daily." "Brenda has prepared a presentation," Sarah said, sounding tired as she dimmed the lights. A projector flickered on, illuminating a screen behind the board. The title slide read, "Guttergate, a threat to our community's integrity, a presentation by Brenda, HOA President." "Oh, good God," I heard Chuck mutter from the back. For the next 10 minutes, Brenda walked us through a 30-slide PowerPoint of pure, unhinged insanity. Slide 1, a grainy, zoomed-in photo of my gutter taken from across the street. A red circle was drawn around a tiny plastic flamingo. The caption, "Flagrant Kitsch." Slide 2, a close-up of a different gutter, this one rusted and falling off a house. It was clearly a stock photo. The caption, "The Imminent Future, Water Damage and Structural Collapse." Slide 3, a slide with nothing but a clip art drawing of a large cartoon rat. The caption, "Vermin." Slide 4, a blurry photo of Officer Kent giving me the thumbs up from his cruiser. The caption, "Local authorities compromised?" She was building her case. "This infestation," she said, using a laser pointer to circle the succulents, "is a mockery of our bylaws. It is a slippery slope. Today it's gutter gardens. Tomorrow, goats on the lawn, cars on blocks. It is anarchy." The pro-Brenda seats of the room murmured in agreement. Marge nodded vigorously. "The board," Brenda concluded, "is here tonight to vote on immediate legal action, to place a lien on Lot 34 and to hire a remediation crew to remove the problem at the owner's expense, which will be several $1,000s. The room was silent. She sat down, a smug look on her face. "Mr. Gregg," she said, "do you have anything to say before the board votes?" This was it. I stood up, carrying my 3-inch binder. I walked to the front of the room and set it on the table with a solid thud. "Thank you, Brenda," I said, my voice calm. "That was very colorful. I just have a few questions for the board. Bob, Sarah, this is for you too." I opened the binder. "Brenda, could you please read the original violation you sent me, the one from 2 weeks ago?" Brenda was flustered. It was for unsightly natural debris," I said, sliding the beige letter onto the table. "Article 4, Section 8, correct?" "Correct," Bob said, looking at the letter. "Great. And are my gutters currently full of unsightly natural debris?" "They're full of plants and dirt and flamingos," Brenda sputtered. "Exactly," I said. "They are full of plants, which are not debris. They are ornamental." Now, Brenda, in your presentation you cited me for unapproved landscaping, Article 7, Section 4. Sarah, could you please read what Section 4 is actually about? Sarah, looking interested for the first time, flipped through her own binder. Article 7, Section 4, Prohibited Trees. It concerns any tree with an invasive root system, or any tree that will grow to exceed 20 feet in height. "Thank you, Sarah," I said. "As you can see, my succulents are not trees." "Brenda, you cited the wrong rule. The correct rule, as I mentioned in my email, is Article 7, Section 2. Bob, would you do the honors?" Bob, looking terrified, read the rule. It says, "Residents are encouraged to install and maintain ornamental plantings, flower beds, and shrubbery to enhance community aesthetics." "To enhance community aesthetics," I repeated, letting the words hang in the air. Now, aesthetics is a subjective term. Brenda and Marge, for example, find my garden tacky. But that's just like their opinion, man. Brenda stood up. "That is not just an opinion. It is a violation. And the board will vote." "Excuse me," a voice called from the back of the room. "Am I in the right place? The Harmony Creek HOA meeting?" The door opened. A woman I'd never seen before, in her late 60s, with a stylish gray bob and a floral print scarf, walked in. She was holding a small plaque. Brenda was furious at the interruption. "Ma'am, this is a private emergency meeting. Who are you?" "Oh, my apologies," the woman said, smiling warmly at the room. "My name is Mrs. Gable. I'm the president of the Mainville County Garden Club. I was just stopping by to drop this off. I tried to catch Mr. Gregg at home, but he wasn't there." She walked forward and held up the plaque. Yard of the Month, November. Awarded to Greg M., Lot 34, Harmony Creek, for innovative and whimsical use of a linear planting space. The room was utterly, profoundly deathly silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the beige carpet. Brenda's face went from red to white to a sort of beige. Mrs. Gable seemed not to notice. "Brenda, is it? I have to say, I'm on your aesthetics committee for the whole county, and I drove by Mr. Gregg's house this afternoon. That is one of the most innovative uses of a xeriscape I've ever seen. The color composition of those echeverias against the pink flamingos. Just lovely. So creative. It's going to be the cover photo for our winter newsletter." The silence broke. First, it was a snicker. From Chuck. Then his wife Karen started to laugh. Then, the entire back half of the room erupted. People were laughing, clapping. Even Sarah, the secretary, was hiding a smile behind her hand. Brenda's power, which was built entirely on shame and intimidation, evaporated in an instant. She had been overruled, not by a lawyer, but by the head of the garden club. She looked at me. She looked at Mrs. Gable. She looked at the plaque. The board. This meeting is adjourned," she whispered, banging the gavel, and practically ran out of the room. Bob and Sarah just sat there, stunned. Bob looked at me. I move to dismiss all fines." "I second it," Sarah said, smiling. "Congratulations, Mr. Gregg." I walked home, plaque in hand. The next morning, I staked the Yard of the Month sign proudly in my front lawn, right next to the mailbox. I was on my porch, finishing my first cup of coffee, when Brenda walked by, clipboard in hand, chairman in tow. She was on her patrol. But this time, she didn't look at my house. She didn't look at the sign. She didn't look at the glorious, award-winning gutter garden. She just kept her head down and power-walked past, 3 doors down, to where she'd spotted a non-regulation welcome mat. The war was over. My gutters were functional. The rain watered the plants and the excess drained out Sal's new holes. They were sightly, and they were definitively not clean. I raised my coffee mug to the nearest tiny pink flamingo. "They say you can't fight City Hall," I muttered to myself. "But the HOA? That's a different story. All it takes is a bad attitude, a good loophole, and a landscaper named Sal.